I've just seen so many, like, I don't want to call out certain websites, but like someone I knew passed away, and they had video of it, and they fucking posted the video here's video of drummer of this band passing away. It's like, if I died and they had video of it, would they share that? It's like, probably. It's like, these people are sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I realized that maybe they don't care about me as much as they care about getting, paid that week.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 263 of Into the Necrosphere. I'm a day late, but not a dollar short. I'm welcoming back the great John Jarvis of the band Scour to Into the Necrosphere, talking about the new Scour record, Gold. We also got an update on all of his musical endeavors. He gave some first-hand stories about what it was like to go touring with Pantera. It's always great catching up with John. He is back after a roughly 200-episode absence, and it was good to have him back in Mean Street Studios. That's going to be coming your way very shortly, but first, a premiere on the Sphere. Outergods, out of the UK, put out their debut album back in 2023 to some critical acclaim. They are about to release their second full-length effort through our approved friends, Into the Necrosphere approved record label, Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records. That album's going to drop on June the 13th, but you don't have to wait all the way to the middle of the year to hear music off that record, because for the first time ever, you get to feast your little ears on Outergods' new single, This Is Cosmic Abomination. A premiere on the Sphere that was Outergods off their forthcoming album Dethroned and Devoured. It'll be available on June the 13th through Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records. The song, of course, Cosmic Abomination. I believe it'll be available for streaming as of March the 21st, and the pre-orders for the record is open now. So if you like what you heard, head over to the Outergods Bandcamp. I might put in the Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records Bandcamp as well. Either or, you can go ahead, pre-order that, let them know who it was who sent you, and hopefully we'll be getting the Outergods gang on the podcast at some point to talk about the album in more detail. Killer song, and of course usually we either have a premiere on the Sphere at the beginning of the show or I produce some unsigned filth. If you're in a band who is not signed and you want me to hear your best ever effort, then reach out to me on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. You can also drop me a line on Instagram or Facebook. You can even drop me a line on X if you've not fled to the enclave of the pedophiles known as Blue Skies, and let me know where I can find your music, and if I like what I hear, I will feature it on the show. Friends, I am a member, as you may well be aware, of the greatest collective of podcasters in all of the universe. I speak, of course, of the Horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, and we kick off your week every Monday with a fresh dose of Horrorwolf 666 brought to you by Brandon Legion. Usually every Tuesday, I bring you into the Necrosphere. Bit of a fuck-up this week, technically. And I'm going to warn you, for some inexplicable reason, StreamYard this week decided to switch my microphone, my default microphone setting, to my camera microphone as opposed to the fancy Shure microphone that I'm using right now. So in this interview, you're going to hear my voice not necessarily sounding as pristine and crisp as you've become accustomed to, but rest assured, everything will be back to normal as of next week. I didn't want to not drop this interview because it is really good, and you can hear what I'm saying. You know, I just sound a little tinny, that's all. Next week, of course, I'm going to be talking to Chris McEwen of the band Destructor, and I've got something very, very special up my sleeve for the week after. Because I'm a superstitious man through bitter experience, I'm not going to share who that might be just yet. It is not Nicholas Barker, I'll put it that way. I spoke to you guys, I mentioned in the news rant a while back that I was talking to him. I can produce the receipts. I tried reaching out to the dude 4 or 5 times after originally getting the okay from him to come on the show. He just went quiet, so I don't know whether or not he's offended by the fact that I had Nas and Evan from Ecclese on the podcast. Either way, don't give a fuck, because the lineup of guests that we have got over the next few weeks is absolutely killer. Moving swiftly along with our Horsemen scheduling on a Wednesday, we've got Everything Went Black, hosted by the great Mike Hill of the bands Tombs and Scorpion Throne. We also give you a double shot that includes Iblis Manifestations, hosted by my brother from another mother, the Middle Eastern Marauder, the great Cheyenne of the band Trivax. On a Thursday, Mike Hill returns. He's joined by the outlaw Mike Scondado and the Professor Jeff Kashid for Necromaniacs, one of my absolute favorite episodes, one of my absolute favorite podcasts of the week. And we also have on a Thursday and again on a Sunday, the Reverend Carl Hikara delivering a fitting benediction, a sermon, if you will, a journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knocks. And that rounds up the entire crew. Make sure that you are following us, subscribed, you are foisting our episodes, our content on your worst enemies, but you're sharing them with your best friends. Make sure as well that you stick around after my conversation with John. I'm going to be diving straight into metalstorm.net for the weekly news rant, and we've got a lot to go through this week. News of Catatonia, a rift between Jonas Renska and his long-time homie Anders Nystrom. We also spoke at, I listened to and gave you my first impressions of new tracks by Cadaver, Goldsveard. Let's see who else we got on tap this week. I've actually just recorded it, and usually it goes by in such a blur, I sometimes forget the names. But Jade, we're listening to, Funeral Baptism, a bunch more. I'm also going to be responding to a couple of comments that a few of you posted on some of my social posts, some interesting questions raised, including my top 5 favorite movies and my top 5 favorite wrestling matches of all time. So that's coming up later in the show. Right now, though, sit back. Forgive me for the fuck up with the... Actually, I tell you what, forgive StreamYard for the fuck up with the microphone, and welcome John Jarvis of Scour back to Into the Necrosphere.
It's great to see you again, man. You have people on the podcast, and then obviously the episode goes into the archives, and somehow time goes by to such a point you think you spoke to somebody yesterday. That you and I spoke in January of 2021. Wow. It's fucking wild to think how much time has passed since then.
Right. It seems like a whole lifetime ago.
Yeah. How have you been?
I couldn't be better. Just had a great year. All my bands seem to be going well. That keeps me happy. So what more can I ask for?
Yeah. I've got to admit, when the first Scour single dropped that was on Gold, I was a bit surprised because, you imagine Phil. I mean, obviously the reason I got you on the podcast to begin with was because I was a massive fan of the EPs. Mm-hmm. Had always hoped to see the band continue, but when the Pantera when the Pantera tours were announced, I kind of you sort of assumed that would take a back burner, and then you guys go drop this fucking complete and utter monster. With Phil sounding absolutely sick. And I think the band, musically, this to me is such a leap forward from the EPs. But it kind of seemed to be, maybe I just missed the announcement, but it sort of seemed to be fulminating under the surface, behind getting worked on in secrecy. Is that, did you guys intend to kind of spring it on people as a surprise?
That's the way I like to do things. I hate it when bands hype something up for so long and then years go by and it's still not delivered. And then it's just kind of like, I can't trust this band anymore because they told me last year that they were in the studio, they were hyping it up last year. And I could sit here and name a bunch of bands that have done that. And it's just, I guess it works in some ways because it gets your fans talking about you. But I'm more of if you don't start hyping something up until it's done or until it's ready, because you never know if that album's going to get done. Something could go wrong along the way, So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of all the hype, Once it was done and then we had a release date, then we're like, okay, let's start hyping this thing. But we were working on it ever since the last one was out, really.
What I was going to ask you, how long? Because Black came out in 2020, mm-hmm. And so the gestation period for this record, by what you're saying, was roughly about 4 years.
Right. Well, in the first, I would say that even one of the songs on the Gold was originally going to be on the Black, and at the last second, Derek wrote a new song. And he's like, "Ooh, this is the one for the Black, and we're going to have to cut one of these other ones." And I think he kind of retooled that one and turned it into one for the new record. But really, he was sending demos off and on for a couple years. And then I guess it was January of 23 is when we started tracking. And then recorded the vocals maybe at the end. And then, or maybe that was 24. But anyway, it was a long process because we had to, get a nice mix thing over, and then go from there. And then you got to wait for the whole packaging and all that fun stuff, the mixing and the mastering after that. So yeah, it was quite a process and took a while, but we were all happy in the end. You know what I mean? We made sure everyone said, all right, this is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, is there a sense as that material is getting exchanged between band members, like we're onto something, or at least maybe I should ask: was there a point where during those sessions of exchanging ideas or even tracking, you started to think to yourself, we're onto something pretty special here?
I'd say about the third or fourth demo he sent to me, it kind of sounded like at the end of I said, it sounds like we're kind of blasting into the future on this song. And it ended up being the last song on the record. But that was the point where I was like, all right, we're kind of taking Scour to the next level here, kind of taking what we do best and kind of pushing it as far as we can, really.
It's definitely a record that for me it sounds way more confident than any of the EPs. But I kind of feel like you're a lot more forward in there's that sort of love of second wave Norwegian black metal, Swedish black metal. There's elements of that kind of with your own spice added in. Like, are there things from the EPs that you guys learned that you took with you on this, or what do you think between Derek, you, the rest of the band? How do you think the evolution kind of, or how did the past experiences help you evolve into what you are now with Gold?
Well, for me personally, it was a lot of the backing vocals. When Phil sends the vocals over and we hear them for the first time during the EP sessions, we would just listen over and over and over, and I would make my notes of where I thought we should sing, and Derek would do the same, and we would mix and match, and we'd go from there. But on this one, I actually recorded the vocals, so I kind of got a head start. But we all were together in on this Pantera tour, recording in the backstages together. So that was a first for us to actually be together while tracking the vocals, the backing vocals. But it kind of, we knew from the past, like you were saying, kind of, it's a minimal, and I don't want to say that word. It's just short and sweet, a lot of our songs. So you don't want to overdo anything, including backing vocals. So I only want to pop in here and there when it's really necessary. So that's something I learned from the past records, is kind of like leave space, I guess. And don't have to sing over every riff.
Yeah, yeah. So when you say you were recording vocals, did you kind of do you, like, and if I'm understanding you correctly, did you do an outline of all of the vocals yourself, and then Phil kind of goes over that with what he wants to do, or how does that setup work?
Well, Phil writes all the vocals and patterns first himself, and then after I recorded them, we sent them to everybody, and then at that point, I would write the backing vocals for Derek, myself, and Mark. Now, Derek always in the past would help with that too. This time around, we kind of got rushed because he was learning the Nest set to play opening for Pantera. So once we got together for that, I gave him my notes. He looked them over, and he's kind of like, well, yeah, this is pretty much what I would do anyway. And we just started right at it and really knocked him out over I guess it was a 2-week period on that tour. But it was perfect because it ended right in Missouri, right where Mark lives. So he could come out for the last 2 shows and knock his vocals out. So it was great to and even Mark at the last thing, he's like, should I sing right here? And I'm like, man, just sing wherever you want. And if it sucks, we'll just delete it later. So it's cool. Like, so, and then it's kind of like you send it back to Phil and hope that he is okay with it. And that's always my fear, that he's going to say, this sucks. But usually he's cool with it. He's like, that's exactly where I wanted you to sing. It's like he leaves it for us for a reason. He leaves little spots for us.
It deploys people to where they feel that they're strongest, and where therefore if they feel they're strongest, they feel they're happiest, and they're going to provide the best performance. I didn't realize that Nest opened for Pantera. How many dates did you guys do with them?
6. So it was over 2 weeks, and in between, when they'd have days off, we would play little club gigs. So we ended up doing 14 shows in a row around those, 6 states. But what a great time, dream come
I was about
true
to
type.
say, I mean, that must have been fucking wild.
Oh yeah, it was the best 2 weeks of my life, I say, because I just couldn't believe it every night. I was just get off stage, go get a nice check and a nice meal, and then it's, oh, I'll go watch Pantera play. It's like,
Yeah,
I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
yeah.
Dream come true, honestly.
How did that deal happen? Was it Phil that asked for you guys to be on the lineup?
Yeah, he basically, I guess, said, I'm going to put my housecore bands on the get. I mean, he's had some non-housecore bands on there too, but it's been mostly bands off his record label that he's a fan of, you know. And luckily, he digs it. And when he had us on the gigs, I remember calling my band and saying we're doing it, and they didn't believe me. They were like, they seriously were like, "Nah, yeah, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it online." And I'm like, no, it's real. We're really opening for Pantera. They's like, yeah, whatever. It was kind of funny that it was so unbelievable that my own band didn't believe it, but it happened. I still don't
Well,
believe it,
it's
honestly.
kind of like when I think you told me the story when you were on last time about actually getting Phil to do Scour. And I mean, didn't you say you thought that you basically thought you were being punked when you first made contact with you guys?
Right? Yes. We weren't sure if it was a real profile because it was a Facebook profile, and anyone can make a Phil Anselmo profile, and make it look real. You know. So at first I was like, yeah, it's highly unlikely that Phil Anselmo's on his computer sending us messages. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And then I got him on the phone. And I'm like, well, that's him. You hear the voice and you're like, you can't deny it. It's like, holy shit, that's really him.
The those Nest shows, how many people did you guys play in front of every night?
Well, I'd say almost all the shows were sold out, 15,000 people. And some nights they were in the seats waiting for us. There were some shows where maybe it was half full when we were playing, but a lot of them, like the weekend gigs, like the Nashville, sold out. And Kansas City was another example of. It was the day after the Super Bowl. They just won the Super Bowl, and they're having the parade. And we came out for the special song at the end, dressed up in Kansas City gear, and the place just went crazy. And I just looked out, and I was like, "Man, there's a full arena. This is insane." But yeah, it was the biggest crowds we've ever played for. That's for
I was just
sure.
about to say, are those the biggest crowds you've been in front of?
That Nest has, yeah, definitely. Scour's played some bigger gigs throughout the years, and so is Pig Destroyer and Agoraphobic. We played Hellfest and all that, but it was pretty rad, man. The arena is a whole different vibe. Those outdoor festivals, there's 10,000 people under a tent, but it doesn't feel like anyone's there really because they're so far away. But in these arenas, you could hear it. You know what I mean?
And you also have that it's a more concentrated burst of energy, I would assume, because like in a festival, you're talking about multiple days. People are already a bit either buzzed from the night before or they're tired, whatever the case may be. Whereas with this, it's like it's going to be 4 or 5 bands,
Right. Yeah. And they're focused
that's it.
on, right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they're focused on that, like you're saying. And, in a lot of these festivals that we play, it is like it's their 4th day and they are disoriented and they don't even know where
yeah,
they're at. But, that's the best part of some of these fests. I used to love the Maryland Death Fest that would, kick off on a Thursday, and I would just party all weekend and watch 200 bands, and by the end of it, you just don't know what's going on, but it's awesome.
It is good what he's doing though, getting a band like Nest to go out and tour with Pantera, because I kind of feel like there's I talk about this a lot on the podcast. There's a lot of the bigger bands. I feel that I wouldn't say they're necessarily blockers, but I feel like more could be done to pass the baton to the next generation of bands. If I think of the type of bands that Metallica take out with them, for example, or even like here in the UK, they're going to have this, this Black Sabbath final ever show, and the bands that they've got on there are like Sleep Token, but then they've got Slayer, they've got Metallica, and it's all great. Not Sleep Token, but Metallica, Slayer, brilliant. But you kind of want to, for the health of the scene, you do need to inject some of that fresh blood in there. And I mean, everybody knows the story about Pantera being taken out with Skid Row. Everybody knows the story about Sepultura being taken out with Sodom. Those are had those things not happened, potentially we wouldn't have those iconic names, as we know them right now.
Correct. And, they've always done that. In the past, I saw Pantera with Crowbar opening up back in 91 or whatever it was. That was, the first time I heard them. And then the next time I saw Pantera, it was with I Hate God and Deftones. And that was the first time I heard Deftones, which are one of my favorite bands today. Same with I Hate God. So all the way down to, when they were taking Morbid Angel out and Satyricon, Pantera seemed to always be taking cool young bands out. And they just did it with Power Trip, and all the housecore bands. King Parrot was just out there, Child Bite. So they're kind of keeping the tradition alive, And I just saw they announced some shows the other day, and they're playing the same venue I saw them in 30 years ago in St. Louis. So it's really cool to see that they're going back and playing some of the same places.
How was that audience towards Nest? Because I mean, again, you've been around long enough that no doubt you've seen this. There are certain bands that anybody that's opening for them, it basically doesn't matter who they're in for a rough ride. Morbid Angel was one. Certainly, Morbid Angel's peak, they were one. Slayer is another one.
Slayer,
I can imagine, when there's a couple of thousand people waiting to see Pantera, their patience is relatively thin for anybody else on stage.
Yeah, no one threw anything at me, and we didn't get booed. There was a couple screams for other bands, like it should have been someone yelled, "I wish there was Child Bite" or something. I was like, "Whoa!" I heard that, but it was really no negativity at all anywhere. It was even like Lamb of God was super helpful. Like I had an idea to have Bobby Landgraf play a guitar solo with us, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Maybe by Nashville we can get a amplifier together and a guitar together." And I was like, "Cool." And then he comes back like 20 minutes later. He's like, "I'm using Lamb of God's amplifier and I'm using Zakk Wylde's guitar. We're doing it tonight." And I'm like, "All right." And then it was every night Lamb of God's crew's like helping us set up our guitars and shit because we're using their amps. Like it just became part of an every night thing where now we're using Lamb of God's amp every night. It's like they didn't have to do that, you know what I mean? And the crew guys definitely didn't have to go out of their way to help us set it up every night. So it was a really cool, family friendly vibe. And of course the Pantera crew were the best. Like I could see if you got some jerks on the tour how it could go wrong, but they really don't. Yeah. It's like when we left, we were sad. We're like, "Oh, we hope this can happen again," And everyone's like, "You'll be back someday." And we're like, "We hope.
I was joking and saying that, I know I don't think that Phil's voice could manage it, but it would be so fucking cool if he could do double duty and have Scour and then Pantera. I mean, I don't know how Scour would necessarily go down for the average Pantera fan. I mean, I'm a huge Pantera fan, so I can't necessarily talk about the average. But I think the typical person who's got into the band through Cowboys from Hell, and they kind of have that ceiling of heaviness or that ceiling of intensity that they're going to go to. But it would be so fucking cool if Scour could do something like that.
Well, yeah, and actually, he brought it up, and I said, "Yeah, well, you can't do it. They won't let you do that." Is what I said. I don't know who they is, but someone would say, "Nah,"
The
because
government.
I'm afraid it's such a strange, different vocal style. I don't know. I mean, he probably could pull it off if he wanted to and had to, but it's just such a risk, yeah, I guess, because you got to be strong for those Pantera. That Pantera set is not easy, you know.
No,
Like,
and it's long too.
right, yeah, it's hour long plus, hour and a half sometimes, I think, you know, and try to sing for that long, anybody, you know. But Pantera stuff is extremely difficult to sing. I've tried it on, I play Rock Band on Expert, and it's hard.
I was watching a video of that again the other day. I don't know how it popped up on my YouTube feed, but someone was like reviewing Rock Band with all the. Remember you could buy all the instruments, you could get the drums and the guitar and the vocals and stuff like that. It's actually a fucking awesome game. That.
Oh, it's great. I use it actually to warm up my vocals. So if I know I'm going to start recording on Friday, maybe on Tuesday I'll sing a couple songs on Rock Band, and Wednesday I'll move it up to 3 or 4 songs until I start to feel it. Then the next day I'll go as hard as I can until I really start to feel it, and then you're supposed to stop, you know. And then usually by Friday, you know, I'll be warmed up and ready to sing.
What are your songs of choice when it comes to those warm up exercises?
Sometimes I'll just do random and see what happens, but Nobody's Fool by Cinderella comes to mind. Chicago, 25 or 6 to 4. Any like Ozzy songs are fun just because they're hard to do and out of my range, and kind of makes me, you know, sing like I can't. I'm not a good actual singer. I'm more, you know, it's a different style that I'm doing. It's a different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going, nobody's fool, like, because so that just gets my, it gets it warmed up. You know what I mean? Even though it doesn't sound good, I feel bad for anyone that has to listen to me sing those. But it's fun to do. Karaoke's fun. You know, come on.
Oh, dude, I love karaoke, and depending on how many wines I've had beforehand, it will dictate what I'd be daring enough to sing. But normally at work, I do a very square office job, so if if we're going out for the evening, and normally people, it's either the club or karaoke. I'm not a fan of clubs. Karaoke, I'm very much a fan of, so I will always try and steer people in that direction. But I love, I'll sing Queens of the Stone Age, Faith No More. If I've had way too many wines, I'll do Ain't Talking About Love.
Oh, nice.
That's a bit of a disaster. I am definitely no David Lee Roth.
Yeah,
but I do fucking love that song though.
Well, right, yeah, he's a better singer than people give him credit for too. You know, he's
without a doubt.
And same with the backing vocals. Eddie Van Halen was a great backing singer. Of course, same with Michael Anthony. I mean, they were both great, all of them.
You know, was a killer singer, Dimebag. I don't think that he gets the credit for it, but I've seen, if you dig around on YouTube, you can see old videos of him doing Seek and Destroy, and you can see old videos of him doing Cold Gin. There's actually somewhere there's a video, and I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it yet. You don't actually see the footage, but it's like soundboard quality recording of Pantera, and I think that would have been like 1995 maybe, of them doing Cold Gin, and Phil and Dime are interplaying the vocals on the verses. Fucking superb. And for me on that cover, you hear almost everything that made Pantera great, just all in one. It's like that really intuitive way of playing that Vinny and Dime had. Phil sounding like a fucking animal, and Rex just being such a laid-back, groovy style bassist. It's absolute magic.
Yeah, and it goes to show you how great Kiss was. They both great songwriters. The gimmick was one thing, but you can't deny the riffs and you can't deny the songs. And like you said, Dime would do backing vocals on a lot of the Pantera songs live too. That I'm not sure if he did them on the record as much, but he would do some live that sounded great.
How many times did you see? Because I never saw them. Like,
Back
I moved to the UK
originally,
in 2022, so I never saw them live. No, sorry, not 2022, 2002. But it was obviously after everything had gone down and they weren't playing together anymore. But it's one of the few bands that I never got to see play live in the flesh.
yeah, I counted it was 8 times before the breakup.
Yeah.
So the first time was with Crowbar on the Vulgar Display of Power tour. And then, of course, I saw him a couple times, maybe 3 or 4 times during that whole album cycle. And then they would come back with White Zombie. And then, it's Far Beyond Driven. And they're headlining with the, Deftones, like I said, and all that. And then by the time it was Great Southern Trendkill, I was seeing him with, it was with Neurosis and Clutch opening up. And then they would come back again, with like Ozfest a couple years later, a couple times, so I was really lucky that I got to see him so many times back in the day. It was so awesome.
Neurosis is also a crazy band to pair with them because it's a very, very different vibe, very different approach.
Right.
And I mean, in those days, that was like that was pre Through Silver and Blood.
It was,
but I mean, they'd already kind of gone full pelt to the psychedelic stuff, right?
I think actually Through Silver and Blood, it just came out, and so they were playing Locust Star and I in the set. I'm pretty sure, and they had the tripped out visuals going on, and me and my friends were all on mushrooms or acid or something. We're like, is this the heaviest band ever lived? And we're all like, I think Neurosis might be the heaviest band that ever lived.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I think Locust Star is that final sequence in that song where they do the prayer and, like the world to power. Absolute genius. Like in the top 10 greatest moments in any song ever, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Actually, Nest has been playing that live on the last tour we played it. And we recorded a version of it recently too. Just because
really?
I love that song so much.
Yeah, it was tragic for me what happened to that band. Absolutely tragic. And I think the thing that really hurts me as a Neurosis fan is that I feel like Neurosis fans always hold on to the band, but I feel like their legacy is somehow unfairly tainted. Because of the implications of Scott Kelly, and to me, it's just like clearly the guys in the band didn't know what was going on. Number one, number two, does one guy's stupidity discount a 2 decades plus of mastery? Because I mean, that's if you go through their discography. I mean, I challenge anybody to find an album there that is. That you could legitimately say is dog shit.
Right, I agree. And, it's a shame, like, when we'd play it, that people would come up to us and say, hey, I haven't listened to that in years because I don't listen to Neurosis anymore. And I'm just like, well, do you listen to Michael Jackson? Like, come on. Like, sometimes you got to separate the art from the artist. And like you said, it's just one guy's stupidity shouldn't ruin your joy for something. Especially if he came out and apologized and stuff. I don't know what the guy did I guess I care. I don't want him to be a bad person. I've met the guy and he was nice to me, and all the guys in Neurosis, they've always been cool to me, But yeah, it is a shame that maybe they didn't go on without him. Like, I feel like maybe if it was, he was the problem, maybe move on without him. But he was
you've had 4 very talented men in the band beside him.
Right. Obviously he was probably the most important part, but arguably, yeah, it is a shame because they were so great, and, hopefully they can get their shit together because people deserve second chances. So I hope the guy, whatever he did, hopefully he can get some help for it, or hopefully he has if it was so bad what he did, hopefully he went to jail for it.
Mm. No, I totally agree with you, and I think it's very hypocritical of people to, they will read books about how crazy musicians were in the 1960s and the 1970s. They'll read like the Led Zeppelin autobiography and go, "Oh, these guys were crazy," and then they switch on Houses of the Holy straight after that. But I feel like there's kind of certain modern day bands that as soon as somebody puts steps outside of the line, all of a sudden it's like, well, that person's dead to me. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no forgiveness, no nothing. Lemmy can have an entire World War II memorabilia collection, but don't dare say anything that somebody doesn't like in 2025 or in 2020. That's over.
Right. Yeah, it's social media. You could blame for that, and the Led Zeppelin seems to get a pass, because they were so great,
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, Led Zeppelin, the Stones, I think all those bands.
you can go down the line and be like David Bowie.
I'm about to say so much wild shit that was going on in those days.
Yeah, I mean, times were different. I mean, it was, I wasn't alive when David Bowie was huge, but it was just a different era, And today, I guess people have wisened up, and but yeah, I'm all about giving people a second chance if they ask for forgiveness, and some people just can't do that, and it's a shame if just sometimes you can get accused of something and then you're automatically guilty, whether you did it or not, it's just a shame, but that's just the world we live in. And so that's why you got to be extra careful, especially if you're someone like those people,
Did you ever hear the band that Scott Kelly did with the two guys from Amon Ra and with Igor Cavalera, Absent in Body? They put a record out on Relapse Records.
No, I thought you were going to say Shrine Builder for a second, but no,
So
I don't think I know that.
Called Plague God. If you like in dark industrial, it's kind of Neurosis meets the darkest, dingiest industrial shit that you've ever heard in your entire life meets Amon Ra. But honestly, one of the most incredible EPs I've ever heard in my life. It's one of those that you really have to sit down and you just have to soak the thing in from start to finish. But it's a punishing listen, but it is absolutely incredible.
I mean, I like all the bands involved, so it should be good, just on paper.
Yeah, I'll drop you a link with the album, but yeah, phenomenal. And again,
Right.
part when the news about him came out, part of why I was so pissed off was like, oh fuck, does this mean we don't get another Absolute Body album? So, but going back to Scour, how do you feel about the response to Gold so far? Because I would say, I think the EPs had their fans. There were some, of the gatekeepers and the folks that are, maybe a little bit more conservative that were like, oh, these are outsiders coming in. We spoke about that the last time you were on the podcast. But I feel like with Gold, I haven't really heard any of those objections. The vast majority of people that I know have heard the album and gone, this is fucking excellent. And, you're talking about dyed-in-the-wool black metal men that, that is all they fucking listen to. And they love the shit out of this new Scour record.
Yeah, it's been overall positive, and the majority of the extreme metal, critics seem to love it. So, and it's mostly that we're pleasing ourselves, honestly. Like, I get just a text yesterday from Adam saying, I still can't believe how awesome this is. And it's like, so if we think it's awesome, that's really all that matters. But, if we think it's awesome, I feel like everyone else should too. You know what I mean? But as long as we were, we all were happy with it. And there had, even if the review's like a 7 out of 10 or whatever, if you read it, they say nothing bad about the record. It's just, The only complaint is like, there's some samples in the middle, breaking it up or something. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I was going to ask you the 7 out of 10s and I guess the complainers. I've had a lot of conversations about people with people recently in the scene, offline and online, about kind of how the underground is changing, how communication is changing, the importance that people or that bands placed on being featured in a magazine versus the importance that bands place on being on podcasts and stuff like that. How do you experience that from your perspective as a musician? Because you kind of getting, I guess, a taste of it from a lot of different angles. You've got Scour that has this, very iconic frontman, but it is still in essence a young band. Even Gold is your first full-length record. And then you've got all of your other bands that are, kind of all over the place as far as profile and the style of music and things like that is concerned. But how do you feel about how the media landscape has changed for an artist and how you get your music in front of people, how you get people interested in what you're doing?
Well, it's, it changes all the time. And then, now it's, you got different magazines that, if you do this for them, they'll put you on the cover, and it's like you kind of got to play a game, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not a fan. If you want to put us on the cover, then we can do it, you know what I mean? But if you want us to produce a record or a song for you and record it to give away to your subscribers, that's a whole it's a whole thing that most bands would, love to do. But it's like, do we have to? Do we want to? Can we say no? And then we realize, yes, we can say no. And then sometimes I love to tell them no, But I've learned that the media, aren't my friends, even though, you know, they can act like they are sometimes. They would throw me under the bus in a heartbeat. So it's kind of a game. It's a double-edged sword, I guess, is what I'm saying. You gotta play the game, but I want to do it, the way I want, and I guess some bands these days will pay extra or do it. Like, I even got an email today saying it was from Spotify. You could pay Spotify and they will pump you more to people. And it's like, how is that fair to anyone? And wait a minute, shouldn't Spotify be paying me more money in the first place? Why should I pay them anything? So they'll always find a way to screw the artists, you know what I mean? And I'm sure in 10 years it'll be some other new way to do it, like AI or who knows what they'll do, but they'll figure out a way to fuck us over again. We just got to kind of take what we can get and try to fight against it. But, it's just, if you go back to the early days of music, they're ripping them artists off too. It's nothing new.
Well, I mean, you go back to the early days of like the, Tampa Bay death metal scene. And a lot of those bands, it's very, very unspoken, but a lot of them signed complete dog shit deals because they were really young. They wanted to be on a record label and they didn't know any better. And the labels that signed them completely and utterly screwed them.
Right? Yeah, you got to know. You got to know what you're signing. Read the label, like Wu-Tang used to say. Read the labels. And luckily, the label I'm on now, Scour, it's pretty simple, but it's the best deal you can get. If we get after they recoup, we get 50%. Most labels give you 10, 15 if you're lucky.
And they do like the 360 merchandising deals and all of that sort of shit. From what I hear, where they want to have a cut of your merch, they want to have a cut of everything else.
Yeah, luckily they don't do any of that terrible things to us. But I've worked with bands personally. I've tour managed bands where their manager gets a cut of their merchandise sales, and their manager gets a cut of every show, and it's like, and then their booking agent gets 10% of the show, and it's just like, wow. Before the end of the night, a quarter of the money's already gone. Then the other quarter is going to be gone from gas and hotels. And then, you're hoping something's left. It's
It's like five ducats left for a burger and a beer.
right. You ain't getting cheese on your burger tonight.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about learning the media isn't your friend. Is that, and I'm asking this out of pure curiosity, is that specific to magazines? Have you had the same experience with podcasts?
I've
Like, what's
both
been your...
all around. I mean, not hating on podcasts. I'm on a podcast right now, but you know, it's a relatively new, format. That's if you think it on the grand scheme of things, it's a great format. But I've dealt with magazines where it's like we have an agreement and then they'll change it and this and that. Oh well, we don't think you're ready for the cover, but we give us this, and it's like. What happened to the agreement we had 2 weeks ago? But there's just been times where, my band will go through some drama and the next thing you know, I'm reading about it. And it's like, why didn't this website ask me about it or anyone in the band for that matter? Instead of confirming any of this stuff, they would just go and post it. So it's like, that's not journalism. They didn't fact check any of this stuff. So it's clickbait. That's just the world we live in. I understand that. And that's why you gotta, be extra careful these days. I got nothing to hide, but still, that doesn't mean someone's going to come out with some accusation. You know what I mean? You just never know.
Dude, I've got a load of accusations that's coming straight after this episode.
Yeah, you never know. Right after this episode, I could hear all kinds of stuff. But your headline could say anything, but
John Jarvis shows me his penis.
Right. Well, that's going to cost extra.
No, dude. The thing is, I get where you're coming from, and this is why I've been having this conversation with a lot of people recently. I do think there's like a degree of parallel universes in the scene, right? There's I mean, this podcast, you've been on it before, and no doubt many people that we're mutually acquainted with have been on here before. My goal has always been, I've got my own job. I've got a job. I don't need money out of this podcast. So there's no point in me. I have no interest in monetization. I've been offered sponsorships. I've been offered ad deals and stuff like that. I'm not interested in it because I want to be able to say whatever I feel like saying, number one. Number two, I want to have on whoever I want to have on. And if I want to say I think an album of the year, this record is the album of the year, but this album sucks, I want to be able to say it without having to deal with fucking emails from a record label or some PR person hassling me because I ran down a band that they represent. But equally, like one of the other things for me that's important is everybody that comes on the show has to have a positive enough experience that hopefully they want to come back on the show because they know that I'm doing it for the right reasons. And equally, they know that I'm never going to misrepresent them, which is why I always asked you that. I always asked that question that I asked you before we started recording. Like, is there something you don't want to talk about? Because I don't want to derail the conversation. I just want you to talk about shit that you're interested in. And that's my whole theory, the whole way I approach conversations is everybody's interested in talking about something. I don't give a fuck what it is. If you're interested in stamp collecting, you're going to speak about stamp collecting in a way that's exciting and engaging. Right. Hopefully, someone comes on you and says, my passion is, collecting obscure German pornography. Maybe I'm going to dial back the conversation, but you know what I mean? It's like free speech. You say what you want, and it's unedited. I'll take stuff out if people get nervous about something they've said. I've done that once or twice, maybe, but it's never about, gotcha, clickbait. I mean, I've gone out of my way, really, to scare off anybody that's going to be into anything like that, and prevent them from listening to the podcast altogether. People that are into this should be into it because they dig the music. They think in a certain way, like this music to them, black metal, death metal, thrash, extreme music, it's a lifestyle to them.
Right, yeah. And yeah, I can see it from your guys' side too, and there's good and bad in every job and every, profession. And, there's been a few times where I'm halfway through an interview and then they're like, gotcha, I'm going to send you these crazy questions. And it's just like, I like nothing to hide, like I said before, but it's like, I also don't want to participate in talking shit about other bands or talking shit about, you know what I mean? Like other people, like burning bridges is never a good thing, especially in the metal scene. So, I love doing interviews. I love answering weird questions. I love, keep it fun. And, and when I said that they're not my friend, I just mean that, I've just seen so many, like, I don't want to call out certain websites, but like someone I knew passed away and they had video of it and they fucking posted the video here's video of drummer of this band passing away. It's like, if I died when they had video of it, would they share that? It's like, probably. It's like, these people are sick. You know what I mean? So I realized that maybe they don't care about me as much as they care about getting, paid that week.
Well, I mean, I'm, hopefully it didn't come across differently, but I'm absolutely on your side, which is why I said, I said what I said. It's I can see it from a band member's perspective, and I think also, one of the differentiators is if your livelihood depends on you getting clicks and revenue and ad revenue and everything like that from doing what you're doing in the music scene. I mean, number one, there's not a huge amount of money to go around.
Right.
Number two, because there's not a huge amount of money to go around, the incentive structure exists for you to do dumb shit like that. Because, I mean, something like that's fucking massively disrespectful. Right. If my best friend passed away today and somebody posted it on a fucking Twitter page, I'd track him down and choke the guy.
Exactly.
At the very least close to death. So I can understand why anyone would be incensed about that, or again, why somebody in your position would be nervous about what they say about people, because I've also seen a whole bunch of stuff taken out of context completely that people say, and then even if they don't say it, people on the internet still make up a bunch of stupid shit. So
right, yeah,
you kind of feel like you're between a rock and a hard place, I imagine.
Right, yeah. I could sit here and give you my opinion on 100 things, but at the end of the day, I would probably lose opportunity. But why would I want to do something like that? Of course I have opinions on every album and every band, and but that's my personal opinions. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's never smart to go on and talk shit, even on Facebook. Feels so good to sometimes get on there and let your feelings out and just press click and just you know what I mean. But it's never worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah. One thing I don't think that I ever talked to you about when you were on here previously, and I honestly didn't even realize it. I didn't realize that you'd been an extra and an actor on a couple of pretty big time shows. You were on House of Cards, 4 episodes, Veep for 2 episodes. Where did that come about? And it seems like recently you've done a bit more, like you've been a bit more active. You did some work in 2021 on Jupiter's Legacy.
See, that wasn't
Travelers 2023.
Right. So those last couple I wasn't on. So I wasn't on this Jupiter's Legacy. And I've sent messages to IMDb, like they want me to pay. That's another thing. They want me to pay them to update my profile. It's like, no.
I'm about to say, I didn't watch those shows because I only watch shows with nudity in it. So
right. So yeah. And I'm not nude in Veep either. So you're going to
oh, fuck.
But, those all started from, I was working the door at a place called the Auto Bar in Baltimore. And they were filming House of Cards, and the crew came in and they said, hey, we're looking for some real Baltimore punks. And I was like, well, you came to the right place. Go upstairs. You'll find plenty, that's where they hang out. So they come back down and they're like, all right, we found what we needed. But now we need do you know any musicians? And I was like, well, I play in a bunch of bands, I'm a musician. And they said, well, can you be here at 6 a.m.? It's a political band. And you're going to play guitar in this political band. And I'm like, all right. And it turned out to be Pussy Riot from Russia or Ukraine or somewhere. And they got arrested, or it was a whole thing.
It was Russia.
Yeah. So I show up and they're like, oh, it turns out you need to be a girl. So we can't use you today. And because it's Pussy Riot. And I was like, well, if you would have told me that last night, I could have told you Pussy Riot's girls. I knew that.
I could have transitioned overnight.
Right. I could have came in dressed differently
Yeah.
and maybe got the gig. But there I was, and they're like, well, since you're here, you can be in the crowd for this scene, and then we could put a mask on you and put you in this other scene, and we put a pair of sunglasses and a mustache, put you in this other scene. And so next thing you know, I was like working throughout the day, and then they said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was an extra throughout that whole season. Then they're like, come back next year, and then come back next year, and come back next year. So I was on that show for 3 or 4 years. And then that's how I got on Veep and all these other shows. I was on a show for AMC, Making of the Mob. And it was just kind of meeting people. And then I started getting typecast as a police officer. I played a cop in like 6 or 7 different TV shows, which was funny because I was in a band called Pig Destroyer about killing cops.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just really, it started out of just for fun, and then it was like, okay, I can make money, and it's like good catering. And while I'm waiting in between scenes in the back, I could get on my phone, book gigs, and continue my booking bands. And so, even though it was a boring job, it was pretty cool, and it's always great to go back and watch, on Netflix.
I was an extra on an indie movie which I didn't even know the name of once, and it was the most boring fucking experience of my entire life.
Oh yeah, it's the worst because you're like, especially if you're an extra and you're just waiting in the like cattle in under a tent, and someone will come in and they'll look over somebody, and there's someone in their ear saying like, get an Asian guy, like we need an Asian guy, any Asians and they'll have to raise their hand, and like it's pretty wild actually, because they're like very specific, like we need a tall blonde girl, and they got to go and find one, and it's like, all right, now we need a middle-aged white guy, and it's like, I'm right here. So when they need that in the scene, there I am. So you kind of got to wait patiently for your spot, and it was a wild experience because it's like everyone's fighting to get like me, and I'm sitting in the back like, hey, I'm getting paid the same either way, so I could sit here and work on my gigs, and they can go do the scene, and I don't care. We're getting paid the same way. So they can act all goofy, but then they'd always come find me and like, all right, we got a scene for you. I'm like, all right. But yeah, it's a weird vibe. It's kind of like the photographer pit at a metal show, like where people are like, get out of my way, I need a picture. It's like, whoa, dude. Chill out.
Yeah.
That's how the extras are. They're like, God, but me. It's like, if they want you in the scene, they're going to come pick you. They know exactly what they're looking for. It's like, it's not we're looking for the best actor. No, they know exactly what they're looking for. And there was one time they're like, hey, has any of you been a waiter before? A server? And I was like, I got 15 years experience. And they're like, all right, come on. So there's times when they need certain skills for the scene, but it's not fun to sit around and wait and get, typecast like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, being typecast as a cop, it's all right if you're playing a lead. I mean, I was about to say it was Sylvester Stallone typecast as a cop, but not really.
Did it Turner and Hooch or something?
He was Cobra.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, Rambo.
Sorry,
John Rambo.
Yeah, and he was Rambo. So I've got a cat that's now fucking pissing around here behind the computer, so you might hear some murmurings. But give me a very quick update as we wrap up, just on what's going on with all of your other bands, because according to Metal Archives, you have several. So you're still in a agoraphobic nosebleed.
Well, yes, All Fall, I mean, hasn't really done anything for a long time. So that's like one of my first bands. But technically that band is, I'd say it been over for years.
Yeah.
We got Nest, of course, working on new album right now. Got a couple gigs with Down.
Which would be the follow-up to Tipping Point, correct?
Endeavors. So we had Tipping Point, then we put out Endeavors on Housecore last year.
Of course. Apologies, yeah.
So that was last year, and then we just wrapped up a new record tracking very recently. So we'll hopefully get that mixed and mastered this year. Maybe put it out next year. Who knows? But playing gigs with the Nest. We're playing Maryland, Milwaukee Metal Fest. Of course, so is Scour. So that'll be a great weekend. We have, fun little projects. We got the Booze Hounds and the Sepultura tribute. Fulgora has got a new record we're working on. I'm sure there's other bands too that I'm not thinking of.
Some will just come out of the woodwork. Oh fuck! I remember I played bass with these guys.
Right. Yeah, and I've done a couple guest vocal slots recently too that pop up from time to time. So just always staying busy, moving forward and having fun while I'm doing it.
Is there anything that you would want to do musically that you haven't taken on yet that you kind of have as a goal for yourself for the future?
I mean, it'd be crazy to work with like Chino or Metallica guys, but then again, it'd be crazy to work with like Pharrell Williams, the rapper guy. I'd like to have him produce something of mine just to see what he would think, But yeah, just maybe with someone outside the box that doesn't really do metal, it'd be cool to work with.
Which is something I'm pretty confident most people that are into the most cult of cult black metal would not expect you to say, but it makes perfect sense. Dude, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on a fantastic record. I really, as I said, there's only a single person that I know, no matter how fucking cult they are, that has anything bad to say about Gold, and I absolutely love it. So,
thanks, man. Thanks for checking it out.
Serve by Scour off their brand new album Gold, a surefire contender for one of the year's best, if you ask me. It's available on Nuclear Blast Records right now. I had a blast catching up with John, so I want to say thank you to him for his time. Hope you guys enjoyed that, despite the technical mishap. As always, I will post a Bandcamp link for Scour in the description to the podcast. I'm still holding out some hope that we might get the great Philip H. Anselmo on the podcast at some point. So if you do go over there and you buy yourself any music, then you let him know that if he wants to be Cavalt and he wants to be true and he wants to be underground, he needs to make his way over to a fucking underground podcast, a real underground podcast. But of course, a pleasure as always speaking to John. Like I said, it took me a little while for him to get fired up. Understandably so. I think he was at the end of a relatively long day's worth of press. But when he got animated, or when we got into it, particularly about the press stuff and the podcasting and whatnot, the conversation started to get really interesting. Before we get to the news rant, I wanted to play you guys a song by a band called Genocidal Rights. They've just put out their debut record on Hell's Headbangers. Hell's Headbangers, I think, are having a banner year when it comes to great new releases. The album is called Genocidal Upheaval of Subservient Abrahamic Law, and this is a song called 9 Gods, 9 Graves. Guaranteed to turn even the biggest soy face into a red meat-eating badass. That was Genocidal Rights off their debut album, Genocidal Upheaval of Subservient Abrahamic Law. And the song is 9 Gods, 9 Graves. It's available on Hell's Headbangers right now. Killer record label, killer band. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Right now, my friends, if you're the kind of fucking dipshit that thinks that we have to be inundated with the minutia of every single day in your life on TikTok, then it's time for you to hit the bricks. Because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, friends, we kick off on metalstorm.net, as always, the finest metal news website in all the land. We start with some good news. Gates of Ishtar, for those of you that didn't know, are back. They have inked a deal with The Circle Music. No new tracks available just yet, but it says here, after reuniting in 2023, the Swedish melodic death metal unit Gates of Ishtar are more than pleased to announce that they have signed a new contract with The Circle Music for the release of their long-awaited new studio record, their first in almost 30 years. More info in due time. That last album of theirs was At Dusk and Forever, which came out in 1998. One of 3 records, my favorite of which is The Dawn of Flames. So I myself will be looking forward to this reunion, although it has been a while since they've been in the game, so it's anybody's guess as to what they're going to be coming up with. With the sweet must come the sour, though, as they say. And whilst I don't really care very much about this, a lot of you have been posting about this. Some of you have messaged me about it. Catatonia have parted ways with guitarist Anders Nystrom, aka Blackheim. It says here, Swedish metal band Catatonia revealed that guitarist, keyboardist, co-founder back in 1991, Anders Nystrom, has decided to go separate ways. Statements from both Anders and vocalist Jonas Renska can be read below. Jonas Renska, pretty simple comment from him. He says, Anders Nystrom and I are going our separate ways, a decision not taken lightly, but for everyone to thrive and move forward with their own creative preferences as well as personal schedules, this has become the realistic option. Anders and I started the band in 1991, and his impact on the band's trademark sound is undeniable. As bleak as this sounds, and is, it's further evidence of life getting in the way getting in the way of our preferred plans. I wish Anders all the best for the future. A lot of people on various forums were speculating that the reason why Anders had been kicked to the curb was potentially because of, and I don't quite know where they got any of this from. I mean, I certainly don't know the bloke, but I would waver a guess that they probably don't know him either. But a couple of people seemed to believe that he'd been kicked out of the band because he'd grown a little too fond of the old sniff. But either way, when he posted his response to this, I think the plot thickened a little. Anders wrote, "Sad but true. The time has come for me to confirm that the roads ahead Jonas and I have chosen for both Catatonia and ourselves have grown too wide and too far apart, and as a result, our long-term collaboration is drawn to a close. With him and I being the duo that founded Catatonia almost 35 years ago, and owing to the fact that we managed to take our mission this far, it's inevitable that our band's legacy will continue to play a huge role for both of us and always live on, albeit in a different light, either captured by our past, future, or the many chapters in between." Word salad, word salad, word salad. What is very interesting about this is the second to last paragraph where he said, "Avowed with one of us gone." I've never started a sentence with the word avowed in my entire life, but anyway, Catatonia could and should have been mutually laid to rest while exploiting the freedom to continue in any desirable direction under a new name. But with Jonas now regrouping with new members and navigating further in his own direction, I no longer need to wait and see which way the wind is blowing to enter that void and grab hold of what's been abandoned. After all, Catatonia's legacy is resting on both ends of the timeline. If you read deeper into what he said there, Effectively, what he was saying was he wanted to continue, or at least take Catatonia back to some degree to maybe the sounds of yesteryear, the sounds of Dance of December Souls, Brave Murder Day, possibly even Discouraged Ones, which frankly, those are the first 3 Catatonia albums, and that's where the band ceased to be relevant for me. Everything else I don't really care for. I think tonight's decision has 1 or 2 decent songs on. The rest of it is shite for wimps, but I concede I might be in the minority on this one because there's a fair few folk that do like them. My real hope was that Anders was going to resurrect Diabolical Masquerade. I was just this very morning listening to The Phantom Lodge, which was the second Diabolical Masquerade album, and it, like every single Diabolical Masquerade album, is a masterpiece. If you haven't listened to it in a while, came out all the way back in 1997. You talk about a lot of people speak extremely fondly of Diabolical Masquerade, but in the main, I think that band is slept upon. It's slept upon as a kind of, unsung gem of the late 2000s. I love it, and I really do think anybody that listens to this podcast probably either knows it and actively loves it or needs to go back and rediscover it. But either way, no word here about Diabolical Masquerade. If I had to make an educated guess, and you guys know I've called a couple of big things and they've come true, I'm going to say we're probably going to end up in an Entombed-like situation where there's going to be something like Catatonia AD, Anders is going to head it up, or he might call it Brave Murder Day or something to that effect, but there'll be some sort of second band kicking off, and he'll do his own thing, going back to the older style. And, the Jonas Renska Catatonia will continue to suck. So anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to some music, hopefully. On FOD have announced a 5th long player. Again, no music, sadly, but I do really, really like this band, and I loved the previous record that they did. We also have news about a band out of Romania called Funeral Baptism. Now, it says here a Romanian-Argentinian black metal duo, but if memory serves me correctly, this was a one-man project headed up by a lad named Damien Batista. Not to be confused with Dave Batista, one-time professional wrestler, now full-time douchebag. Anyway, it says here, Romanian-Argentinian black metal duo Funeral Baptism presents their newest single, In Solitudine, the first glimpse into the band's long-awaited second full-length album of the same name, scheduled for release later this year via Loud Rage Music. No idea what these guys sound like. Their debut album kind of passed me by. I think it came out back in 2017, if memory serves me correctly. I'm just verifying that, and yes, I was correct. The Venom of God, it's called. But yeah, not one I really listened to. There was a bunch of other stuff that came out in 2017 that I was way more interested in. On that note, though, let's give this a whirl. Pausing there, I think the first 20 seconds of that song is one of those classic examples of a competent producer in the room telling the band probably to get rid of it. It sounds Bush League to me. It kind of, in a way, makes the song sound a little demo grade. That being said, when we're past it and the blasts kick in and the song is starting properly, it's actually pretty good. I think that melody in the main verse section of the song, very cool. I think Damien Batista's vocals are really, really good. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a raspier Ishan, like, maybe Ishan that's been dipping into them Camel unfiltered cigarettes a little bit more than he should. But it's like an Ishan, like a modern day Ishan that's a little bit more ballsy. So that I like very much. And the overall song, I think that kind of dive riffing that he uses when he kind of shifts gears out of the melodic part, I think that works really well. I think overall the production is good. So this gets a thumbs up from me. The only thing that I will say, I don't want to necessarily give it a thumbs down, and I'm not talking about the music now. I'm actually talking about the band's name. I don't want to give the band's name a thumbs down, but I am growing very wary of bands using the name or the word funeral in their name. We've had Funeral Mist, we've had Dark Funeral, we've had Funeral Winds, we've had Funeral Throne, and I can probably go into ChatGPT or Grok or even sit here and suck my thumb and come up with at least another 10 bands with the word funeral in the name. I'm all funeraled out, quite frankly. It's kind of like the trope I keep bashing on about that I truly have had a gutful of. The I am the blank lyrical trope that so many bands still use. And whenever I think about it, all I can think about are fucking shit bands like Arch Enemy, bands designed to make, nerds who took a sick note to gym class every single week to make them feel special. I am the blank, says little Timmy while he fucking plays Call of Duty. I just don't like it. It's been done to death, and I think Funeral is next on the list to be stricken, to be forbidden from the metal scene. But that being said, if I put that minor, let's be honest, old man's quibble, old man screaming at the sky quibble aside, it's a decent song, and it deserves a thumbs up. Now, a band who is way beyond decent, and I've got very high hopes for these folks, Jade. This band are from Germany, if memory serves me correctly. Their debut record impressed the living hell out of me. Came out in 2022. It was called The Pacification of Death, out on Pulverized Records. Really, really great atmospheric melodic death metal. Kind of the sort of death metal that, somebody who's a fan of Flesh God Apocalypse and Septic Flesh, and let's think Hideous Divinity maybe, those kinds of bands, they would be able to take to this band and graduate into listening to a better quality, a higher caliber of music, Septic Flesh excluded. But actually, guys that have been in the game for a while and, maybe like their music a little edgier, ergo higher ranking members of the Legion are going to dig it a little bit more as well. So, as I said, I've been excited to see what they do next. The Pacification of Death certainly laid a blueprint for excellence. It says here, Jade are delighted to announce their sophomore full-length effort, Mysteries of a Flowery Dream. Little fruity title there, but anyway, set for release on May the 9th, 2025. I don't want to pick too much on titles and band names. I'm going to try my best to withhold, to abstain from that. They're releasing it via Pulverized Records on CD, LP, and digital, while American label Iron Fortress Records will handle a limited tape edition. It was recorded and mixed by Javi Felez at Moon Tower Studios and mastered by Jamie G. Arellano at Orgon Studios. Really nice album cover. Kind of looks like a painting of Shelob out of Lord of the Rings. But anyway, the song that we're going to listen to is a track called Shores of Otherness. It is song 3 on the record. It's 8 minutes 26. So I'm not sure we're going to get the full experience of it inside of a 2-minute skim through. But anyway, let's find out what it sounds like. First things first, I need to correct myself. I may have referred to the band as being from Germany earlier. They're not. All three members of the band are resident in, and most likely, judging by their names, from Spain. This is excellent. This is way better than I thought that it was going to be. It is definitely darker than the Pacification of Death. Heavier as well, I think a bit more aggressive. I think Javier, the bassist and vocalist, I think his voice sounds absolutely top-notch. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and award the song what it deserves right now. This deserves a top-notch. This has instantly gone up to the upper quartile of my most looked forward to albums of this year. And like I said, I stick by my description earlier. You know, if you're into rubbish like Flesh God Apocalypse and, let's be honest, I don't like Hideous Divinity either, that sort of stuff, you can cast that muck aside and you can graduate to something decent that is still going to provide you with the epic melodic feel, but it's actually going to sound like music a grown-up listens to. I love it. I really, really enjoy it. Another thing that I wanted to point out that instantly struck me about those first 2 minutes, the drummer that joined this band back in 2024, I think the only personnel change between the first and this album, his name is Lord Bud. He's from Spain as well. Plays in a band called Deja Death. They did a record in 2016 called Satan is Losing Momentum. It's just fucking fun. I don't know why that's tickled me, but anyway. But yeah, he is excellent. Instantly stuck out on the to me about that track is love the drumming. Really creative. Kind of really. There's sort of that intuitive style of drumming that I love. Just accents added to the right place. Nothing that sounds mechanical. It sounds like the dude is beating the ever-loving fucking snot out of his drums. And speaking of which, I didn't get a chance to put out a request for questions from the Legion. But as it turns out, many of you posted some pretty interesting and insightful either questions or comments on a few of my recent social posts. So I figured I would dig into those this week, and then next week we can do some more questions. But Damian Norris wrote on the Eogon, the Eogon Facebook post, I loved both the Cleese member interviews. This one may have slightly edged ahead just because Eogon mentioned Primus. I know they're not for everyone, but I really enjoy them. He then goes on to talk about my critique of Blood Abscission, agrees with what I said. Then he says, on to some questions, please, if you get a chance. What are your top 5 films? So he gives his top 5 list here. Pulp Fiction, The Thing, Old Boy, The Exorcist, and Event Horizon. I will say, in the first instance, Damien, much like your taste in podcasts, you've got some excellent taste in movies. We got a bit of overlap there. My favorite movie of all time, and if you've followed this podcast for any length of time, you're probably going to be able to guess what I'm about to say. There Will Be Blood, best movie ever made. I think Daniel Plainview's performance, PTA's direction, Johnny Greenwood's score, everything on that movie to me is 11 out of 10. It's the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I saw it 3 times at the cinema. I have probably watched it at least 50 times since. I never don't enjoy every single second of it when I watch it. I just love it. So, favorite movie, There Will Be Blood. Number 2, The Exorcist. Another movie I think is absolutely perfect, and another one I've seen in excess of it easily 60 or 70 times. Number 3 would be Silence of the Lambs. Number 4 would be, it's difficult to say. Like, this is where it starts to get a little murky for me, but I would probably say Heat, the Al Pacino, Robert De Niro epic. And then at number 5, I would probably say either Predator or The Exorcist 3, depending on the mood I'm in. Let's say they're tied for number 5, and I'll be cheeky and cheat and actually give you six of my favorite movies. But yeah, The Exorcist 3 and Predator. Predator based purely on how many times I've seen it, and the fact that, I grew up in a generation where real men looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger on Predator and not like the fucking, Harry Styles wimps that you see nowadays. And The Exorcist 3 because it is fucking brilliant. By the way, March the 18th, I was reminded about this on X earlier today. It is Brad Dourif's birthday. So I know that he is an avid listener of Into the Necrosphere. So happy birthday, Brad Dourif. May I say, Brad Dourif's best ever performance as James Veneman, the Gemini killer in The Exorcist 3. Easily. Damien also asks, what are your 5 favorite WWF/WWE matches? This one is very tough, and again, he gives a good selection here. His selection is Mankind versus The Rock, I Quit match at Royal Rumble 1999. Mankind versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring 1998. Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian in a TLC match at SummerSlam 2000. Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon at King of the Ring 2001. There was a street fight. And then a Triple H versus Cactus Jack street fight at Royal Rumble 2000. Those are all magnificent 5-star matches, easily. I would say my favorites would be, I would definitely have on my list Mankind versus The Rock, I Quit match. I'd have The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, WrestleMania 17. I loved that match. I love the ending of it as well. I know it's contentious, but I don't give a shit. I think heel Stone Cold is my favorite, probably my favorite character ever in wrestling. Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon, King of the Ring 2001, probably the best match of all time. Then again, it gets really difficult because that Triple H Cactus Jack street fight was magnificent, but you have to have a Bret the Hitman Hart match in there. Bret Hart against Stone Cold, either at WrestleMania 13 or at Survivor Series 1996. Can't decide which. You'd have to have a match in there with Shawn Michaels. I think his first match against The Undertaker was exceptional. And I kind of feel like you need to have a match there with Chris Jericho as well. And also, maybe this is the one I would go for. Ric Flair winning the Royal Rumble at 1990, the Royal Rumble match in, I think it was 1990. Not only is Ric Flair magnificent throughout that entire match, but Bobby the Brain Heenan gives a master class in how a wrestling commentator helps tell and sell a story. So if you haven't watched that one in a while, make sure you go back and check it out. I think it's all on Netflix now. So, and I'm pretty sure that someone somewhere is gonna ask me what I think about the John Cena heel turn. I mean, I don't follow wrestling as closely as I used to, but I'm also not going to talk about it too long on the news rant because you know not everybody watches wrestling. So you save that one for the next Q&A session. And maybe I'll talk about that some more. On to some more music. Cancer have unleashed a brand new single called Amputate. It says here, in support of their upcoming full-length release, Inverted World, due on April the 25th via Peaceful Records, the UK's Cancer offer in listening a brand new single titled Amputate. I like it. I think the one thing to probably level set on, in case anybody isn't aware of this, so John Walker of Cancer is the only remaining. I understand the irony in me using this turn of phrase, but the only surviving member of Cancer. I mean, I don't think anybody's dead, but you know what I mean. He's the only guy from the original lineup to be there. He has surrounded himself with a bunch of young bucks. Daniel Maganto is now playing bass for the band. He was on a Peace Till Death split that they did in 2023. Gabriel Valcazar, he's also playing with the band, and Robert Navayas is playing with the band now as well. So they're all new for this new record. The previous record that Cancer did was Shadow Gripped, and I remember listening to that and not being particularly impressed with it. I mean, it was better than Spirit in Flames, which they put out in 2005, and justifiably has a whopping 37% score on Metal Encyclopedia. And then Black Faith, prior to that, in 1995, that's got 51%. So, Cancer are a band that were always, to me, B tier. They were never, if you think about the early days of the, the glory days of the death metal scene. I mean, whether you look at it globally or whether you look at it just in the UK, where they were originally from, they were never on the same level as Bolt Thrower, Carcass, or a band like that. But they have had some degree of influence, and they're certainly, a group of folks that love them very much. And when I hear a song like this, it kind of brings a warmth to the cockles of my heart, because I feel like John is 56 years old. He still sounds great, kind of like Dave Ingram with Benediction that we when we listened to their last single last week. And whether or not he has surrounded himself with young bucks or not, that's immaterial, because the music they've produced, I think, is pretty entertaining. Am I ready to give it a top notch? Absolutely not. I wouldn't even go as far as to say I'm particularly excited about hearing the whole thing, but if somebody played that in the background, I certainly wouldn't complain. Okay, let's move on. There is talk of a new Candlemass EP. A Legion have unleashed a new single. That previous one was so fucking atrocious. I think we're just going to give that one a skip. But I did want to listen to this. Escarnium have revealed a new song. It says here, in the wake of their upcoming full-length release, Inexorable Entropy, due out on May the 9th via Everlasting Spew Records, Brazilian death metal juggernaut Escarnium have premiered a brand new track in preview called Relentless Catabasis. I don't know if it qualifies as a lead per se, but you know what I mean, that guitar line that they've got going in the background there, it adds so much in terms of atmosphere and just sinister feel to the song. And the song overall, I have to say, superb. somebody asked me the other day in the questions whether or not I'm. It was quite a bizarre question to ask because I have sung the praises of the Brazilian scene many times, but asked me whether or not I'm into Brazilian death and black metal, and I said yes. And tell you what, if they all sounded like this, it would probably be one of my favorite scenes. These guys are 4 albums deep into a career that I've not been hugely familiar with previously. But I certainly feel like I need to go back and listen to the previous records. They have, for reference, in case you want to do the same, their debut, Excruciating Existence, that came out in 2012. Interitus, that came out in 2016. Dysthymia, which came out in 2022. And now Inexorable Entropy. Their first for Everlasting Spew Records. They, I will also say, as a label, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, but as a label, I think they're starting to really impress me with the bands that they're signing. But I love this. I think the vocals sound savage. The drums sound like berserker drums, right up my street. It's aggressive. It's dark. It's kind of it's black tinged death metal. It's like it's not. There's not enough black metal elements for it to be fully. You wouldn't fully call this blackened death metal. But there's just enough to keep it interesting, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love it. I think they deserve them the ultimate accolade to be found in all of metal today. Second highest accolade. The highest accolade, of course, is being mentioned on the Into the Necrosphere Best of Annual list. But they deserve certainly a top-notch award on this week's News Rant. I'm going to do one more comment, and then let's listen to the new Cadaver single. We've got one here by Halvdan Ruggenwalder. He says, I know it's not connected to this episode, but did you hear about the backlash against the French black metal / hardcore band Celeste last week? I like Celeste very much. They announced a tour in Russia as they have fans in the country and have been there before and stated it was to reconnect with those people. Yet so many triggered libtards lost their minds over this, and the band had to take down the post due to it. In truth, they have previously toured in both the Ukraine and Russia in the past, so I don't see it as a big deal, and I personally find the backlash as how utterly weak and toxic the current metal scene is, and I'm glad I don't associate with it directly. I certainly don't associate with people that are going to berate a band for wanting to tour in a country. And I've mentioned this before, when I played a Grima song at the back end of last year on the News Rant, it was actually a thought that just occurred to me as I was listening to the track. Undoubtedly, there's going to be people that point to bands or even fans out of Russia and say, they're the enemy, they invaded one of our allies. The irony of this is, these are the same semi-sentient simpletons who despise their own government, are out protesting, anybody and everybody who sits in public office, that doesn't push their fucking insane communist agenda, but then immediately seem to operate under the assumption that every single person in Russia is exactly the same, thinks with one mind, they all support Putin. I certainly don't think that Celeste are Putin supporters, but, Russia is a very big country with a lot of people and, a pretty buoyant metal scene. So as far as I'm concerned, if they want to go there and play, more power to them. The fans there, I think if most of us sat down with them, we'd probably get on with them pretty well, and I can guarantee you most of them probably don't support Vladimir Putin. So, yeah, I think any sort of backlash against them about going to play in Russia is ridiculous and pathetic, and it comes from people that don't know what they're talking about when it comes to politics, which, again, sadly, in this day and age, the vast majority of people read a CNN headline or an MSNBC headline or a Fox News headline, think they're informed, and then are given a platform on social media to run their mouths at their leisure. they're almost expecting some degree of validation for it. It's pathetic, and it's not something that I wish to have anything to do with. One more comment. Felix Mandoki writes, "Thanks for your constant output. Always a pleasure coming to the office on Tuesdays and putting on your podcast right away, first thing in the morning. I'll apologize to you, Felix, and to the Legion for letting you guys down this week and not putting out an episode on Tuesday. Like I said earlier, this episode was it had the shimmy put on it. There's no two ways about it. I obviously had the issue with the microphone switching to the camera mic when I was recording the interview. And I was debating whether or not to even put out that interview, but the interview itself is pretty good. So I figured, you can still hear what I'm saying. I may as well just release it as is. It is going to bug me, though. I'm the kind of person where that sort of thing will annoy me for fucking weeks, if not months on end. So that is what it is. Then I had done an entire news rant last night. Got to 9:30 because I only ended up starting late because of my because of work, because of the day job. And then for some fucking stupid reason, Bandicam had recorded everything in a lower register. So I sounded like this. And then, obviously all the music was fucked as well. Not only was it fucked, but it was clipped. So there was no way for me to fix it. So, yeah, I don't know what in the fuck was going on. But, when I got to 9:30 last night and I knew I had to redo the news rant, I just thought, fuck this. I love you guys, but... you're not going to get the best of me now. But I did put out a post about it because, I know people kind of teased me a little bit about it, but let me just give you guys my thoughts on why I put out a post and apologize for not putting out an episode. I respect my audience as much as I know it's free and, none of you guys pay for this, and I've never, clanged my little beggar's cup asking for donations or anything like that. I just feel like if you don't respect the fact that people place value on what you do, then why should they value you in the first place? Or why should they value what you put out or what you give them in the first place? So I understand that, a lot of you guys place a high degree of value on the podcast. And for me, it's a matter of respecting the audience to put out a post and say, listen, I'm sorry, I've missed my deadline. So, and, I promise you guys that I will always do my very best to make sure that I don't miss deadlines in the future, because I don't give a shit if it's not my job and if it's never going to be my job. But I still it means a lot to me that people like the show. I've said this many times before. There's so many podcasts people could be out there listening to. I think I read the other day that the average podcast has like 100 listeners or 100 downloads per episode. I have vastly in excess of that. So the fact that, 4 digits at least, sometimes 5 digits, are interested in hearing what I have to say on every episode, I'm humbled by that, and I'm always going to behave accordingly. So anyway, so Felix goes on to say that he has discovered many great bands through my recommendations. Some of your taste I don't get at all, but hey, that's how it is. Fair enough. Don't you be telling me, Felix, that you don't like Wisconsin Death Grip by Static X. He then says, now today I made a big mistake. As a big Voivod fan, I shared your episode with a bit of a transcript in the Voivodians group. And right from the first, the comment was, aren't they Nazis? Not what I expected. It's not Burzum or Satanic Warmaster. Same kind of moronic televangelist level of IQ thinking that Halvdan was talking about earlier. We've had Nas on this podcast multiple times. He's been on Iblis Manifestations multiple times. He has directly responded to the question, are you a Nazi? Cheyenne asked him that question point blank. He said, no. I don't know what else people want from him. We're supposed to celebrate and rightfully so, but we're celebrating the retirement, the final show of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, where these dudes have all manner of, drug-fueled craziness in their past. Ozzy Osbourne tried to choke Sharon to death, saying the Voices told him to do it. There was that whole to-do in the 1980s. There's, Metallica are going to be on the lineup. There's a picture of them sea hiling. God forbid anybody, would to dredge that up because, the same people crying and sobbing into their oatmeal about Elon Musk will most certainly have to stop listening to Metallica. But anyway, we're supposed to like and love all of those bands, but Nas gets given the amount of flack that he's given. Cancelled gigs and fucking, people going after him personally on social media over and over again because he sampled somebody that they don't like. I mean, and he didn't even sample him in a way where he's glorifying the dude. Once again, I've mentioned this before. There's so many other people that sample fucking Charles Manson. Charles Manson went to the courthouse with a swastika carved into his forehead. But that's okay. It's so fucking stupid. I mean, and you have to take, to a degree, you have to take the threat from these people seriously because they can intrude on your personal life. They can, they have the fucking, struggle session communist revolution mentality where they will go after you personally. They'll try and fuck your life up. But really, from my perspective, beyond acknowledging and navigating the threat, I want nothing to do with them. I don't respect them as people. I don't respect their opinion. I want zero to do with them. I want to manage their influence and input into my life as much as I possibly can. Which means, there's certain forums and things like that I will just never post on, and I don't really post on forums anyway, but even if it comes to promoting the podcast, I'm never going to share the podcast with them. I've actually worked very hard to ensure that a lot of those people don't listen to the show. So hopefully that continues. There's certain bands that I would not have on the show, on the left and the right, because I don't want to attract their fans. So anyway, right, let's move on to some music. Cadaver are releasing a brand new LP called Hymns of Misanthropy. Pretty quick turnaround for them, if I'm not mistaken. I think their last one, if memory serves me correctly, might have been 2023. Let's have a quick gander. Yes, I am correct. The Age of the Offended, which was not a bad record. Anyway, it says here, Norwegian death metal ensemble Cadaver is back with a new full-length announcement entitled Hymns of Misanthropy. The 10-piece music effort will be released on April the 25th via Listenable Records. To taste a first piece of the new music, give a listen to the opening track, Maltreated Mind. I would say it's Mind. It says here Mins, but the old spell check must have malfunctioned at Metal Storm. Maltreated Mind makes man manic. So anyway, that tongue twister aside, let's hear what the song sounds like. In the words of the great Al Pacino, just when I was out, they pulled me back in. When that song started, I thought to myself, what in the fuck is going on here? Have these dudes been spending too much of their time listening to Imperial Triumphant? I kind of thought they'd completely lost the plot, to be honest with you. But then we have this fucking awesome, epic melody, and I don't really know. It reminds me of something, and I cannot quite put my finger on it. And I'm sure that if I sit here pondering it, I probably won't get to it for at least the next hour. So we'll skip that exercise. But it is something it reminds me of, not metal, like maybe like a post-punk band or something. But the way that they incorporate that into that song and the way that they build up to that sequence in the song, and you guys know what sequence I'm talking about, I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to sound like a bit of a fool. But, that particular sequence, brilliant. I remember reading an interview with Satyr from Satyricon way back in like the early 2000s, and he was talking about, his mindset in writing for Rebel Extravaganza. And he was saying like a lot of the parts that he would write, he would consciously write as something that sounded like not necessarily filler, but it didn't necessarily make a whole lot of musical sense, or it was something quite mundane that then builds up to this epic burst of something, whether that's melody, a breakdown, whatever the case may be. And if you listen to Havoc Vulture, that's a good example of what I'm talking about, the song Havoc Vulture. This is not nearly the same kind of song, the same kind of music, but definitely the same mindset or the same approach, and I love it. I think it works extremely well. One thing that I would say as well, by the way, just with regards to Cadaver, we were talking earlier about Diabolical Masquerade and, records that people maybe sleep on a little bit. Cadaver called themselves for a period of time Cadaver Inc. And back in 2001, they put out an album called Discipline on Earache Records, way before Earache Records turned into an absolute joke. That album, Discipline, is fucking brilliant. I might wrap up a news rant with it at some point. Not this week though. This week I've got something extra tasty for you guys. But that Discipline record is well worth your time if you haven't heard it yet. Moving on, my friends. Rivers of Nile premiering another new single. So many people fucking absolutely creaming themselves over this new Rivers of Nile, and I think it is completely deplorable. Wolves in the Throne Room to reissue 2005 demo. Lucifer's Child Ichor track unveiled. Let's give this a listen. I know that Ishon, that Cheyenne had a member of Lucifer's Child on Iblis Manifestations last week. And I'm running a little behind on the podcast listening, but I do need to give that episode a listen. It says here, Greek black metalers Lucifer's Child have unveiled a music video for the new single Ichor in anticipation of the band's third studio album, The Illuminant, set for release on March the 28th via Agonia Records. Let's give it a spin. Decent. I can definitely see why Shane enjoys this. I've got a reasonably good feel for the kind of music that he likes. This definitely sounds right up his street, and I don't think it's bad either. Good groove, nice production. A band you can hear has definite breakout potential. I mean, they're not going to be side by side with Taylor Swift at the top of the charts, but when it comes to when it comes to this style of music, I think I could see them sit quite comfortably with a band like Watain. It's a similar vibe, and for a fan of Watain, I think this would be particularly good. So like it. Thumbs up. By the way, I should just give a quick shout out to my friends in the band Hierophant. Of course, I featured one of, and I want to just make sure that I don't give away his stage name. Sometimes like you speak to so many people, you can't quite remember whether or not the dude has a stage name or not. No, he doesn't. But my friend Fabio Coretti of Hierophant was on the podcast, I think at the beginning of last year it might have been. But Hierophant have just signed with Agonia Records, so well done to them. All right, this is one I have waited for a while. Galsveerd, releasing their sophomore album in June. Norwegian black metal band Galsveerd have revealed their upcoming second album, Braiding the Stories, set for release on June the 6th, the most evil date. Via Season of Mist, you can find a lyric video for the title track below. It also goes on to say, Braiding the Stories was recorded at Sols Lotet Studio in Bergen, Norway, produced by Ivor Sandoy and Galsveerd, and blah, blah, blah. Effort was mixed by Ivor Sandoy. I'm not going to go through all the credits. What I will say is, album cover looks pretty cool. You guys all know, or at the very least you should know, that I am a massive Galsveerd fan. I think my reflexive dislike of the last Traldom album, which I should go back and listen to, based on Mike Hill's effusive praise of that record, and I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I will do. But I think my reflexive dislike of that record came from the fact that Galsveerd's debut album set the bar so high for me in terms of what Gal is capable of musically that I was just expecting something different and something better. But that being said, I'm going to shut the fuck up. Without further ado, let's hear the first single off of this record. Mag-fucking-nificent. I always said it about the Galsveerd debut album, Ghosts Invited. It was a record that was black metal through and through without a single scream in it. I think this has very much, I wouldn't say transcended, but it certainly moved away from black metal. It still has some of the feel of Ghosts Invited, at least based on the first 2 minutes there. And by the way, I do have the whole album. I've just not gotten around to listening to it yet, but it was sent to me a couple of days ago. I will listen to it in the next few days. And as always with Goldsveard, it is a journey. Whether it's the Humming Mountain EP or the debut record, it's something you should listen to end to end. But the taste that he and the band have given us here, I fucking love. Atmospheric. It's got a distinctly Norwegian feel to it, a Norwegian flavor. I think that he has become a much more confident clean singer. That is definitely very evident in how this song sounds. Like, whether it's got to do with the recording or whether it's just got to do with the fact that, he's got his feet underneath him confidence-wise after putting out Ghosts Invited. The dude sounds like he's singing from a place of great confidence. And there is a part of me that is always going to wish that we hear another Gol black metal record in the vein of Ad Majorem, Satanas Gloriam, or Twilight of the Idols. I mean, that to me is prime Gorgoroth. As I've said many times before, prime Gol, some of the best black metal ever released. And I know when Goldsveard still plays live, they do Carving a Giant, they do Wound Upon Wound, they do Exit Through Carved Stones, Prosperity and Beauty. So there's some of that still in him. But maybe he feels like he said what he can say in that medium, and this is where he now wants to express himself in, and that's absolutely fine by me. Top notch, without a doubt. And again, I will call it out. I know that there are people that are potentially not going to like that song. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Legion, so post them in the comments or drop me a note on the socials. But for my money, as a longtime fan of Gol and most of what he's done, I love it. I always wondered how they were going to follow up to Ghosts Invited, and if the rest of the record sounds anything like that, that's absolutely in line with what I didn't necessarily hope for, but what I would have wished for, if you guys catch my drift. Okay, let's do a question. Actually, this was a question sent to me on Instagram by Connor Heaney. He says, "Good morning, really enjoying the podcast. I have a question for next or future weeks. I saw a post to say that Burzum's Bellis album was released 15 years ago this week. I wondered what your opinions and memories are of that album. I remember receiving the CD on the day of its release, having not heard a second of the album beforehand. Hearing the guitar riff for Dowdy Boulder's kick in after the short introduction was certainly spine-tingling. Having listened to Burzum incessantly for the previous decade, such a memorable moment would no doubt have been long spoiled in the age of streaming. You are absolutely correct there, sir. Say what you like about Varg's post-prison releases, but I do feel that Bellis retains that feeling of magic. Interested to know if the music stuck with you too." Yes, it did. That's a good record. It is not as good to me as my favorite Burzum albums, which are Philosophem. Actually, I should say specifically the first 3 songs on Philosophem. And then Hivis Lyset Tar Os. And I say that with apologies to everyone in Norway who I've offended for absolutely ransacking their language. But that opening track on that record, Det som en gang var. I mean, few songs embody the musical qualities and the atmosphere and the spirit of Norwegian black metal as well to me as that track. Genius. It is just absolute genius. And then, of course, the first and second record's great as well. But I had a similar experience in terms of how I received Bellis, in that it was sent to me, and I mean, I know it came out on Bilebog Productions, but it was sent to me by, I think, Candlelight Records in the UK. And I know Candlelight Records certainly did some distribution for Burzum. I think they still sell Burzum t-shirts. I didn't realize that the album had been released, wasn't aware of anything to do with it. Listened to it, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I had thought by the point that record came out that the Count was only interested in his dungeon synth keyboard mucky muck, which I don't like. But on that record, he certainly proved me wrong. So I enjoyed that. I'm going to throw in an additional, slightly controversial opinion here, and that is the From the Depths of Darkness set of re-recordings, there are a couple of songs there that I think are really good. In particular, A Lost, Forgotten, Sad Spirit. I think the work that he does there with his vocals is better than the original. I'm just going to go out and say it. I know that, again, many will disagree, but I think it's fucking superb. So I was very sad that he didn't end up doing more of that. I know he had originally spoken about doing more, and, Dunkellight was going to be done, and Hieses Dort was going to be done. God knows what happened to him after that. He had his YouTube channel, probably ended up going off grid to such a point that there was never going to be a chance of him doing any other music. What has he done most recently, actually, come to think of it? Oh, yeah. I remember now. He put out that Land of Tool in 2024. It was absolutely abominable. Sad, actually, that a guy with so much potential should, let's be honest, be a difficult character. A difficult character to defend, certainly. Anyway, one more song, then it's over to the Democrats Guide to Rock Music. Austere are streaming a new single called Time Awry. Today, Australian black metal duo Austere unveiled Time Awry as the first single taken from their newly announced forthcoming long player, The Stillness of Dissolution. That's due out on June the 6th, 2025 via Prophecy Productions. It was the second song written for The Stillness of Dissolution, our forthcoming new album. Guitarist, keyboard player, and vocalist Mitchell Keepan explains on behalf of the duo. The first few songs written for the album tend to have a slightly more stripped-back rock sound than those written later, and that is on display here. I really like that last Austere record. Let's give this one a whirl. Well, I'll tell you what, if you are sobbing about the fact that Catatonia have broken up, then you may want to give Austere a listen, because that's about as, not the same necessarily, but certainly has whiffs of Catatonia in there, along with some black metal. I love it. That previous Austere record, Beneath the Threshold, very nearly made it onto my top 10 of 2024. So good work from these dudes. Again, looking forward to hearing the whole album. One thing that I should say very quickly about 2024, and I'm gonna make a confession now, Legion. So I'm sure if he's listening to this, he's going to be smirking from ear to ear. But Marco, the great Marco of Stellar Master Elite, whose t-shirt I am currently wearing, kept nagging me all of last year to listen to the new Paysage de Ver album. They're a black metal band. You probably know this in any case, but black metal band out of Switzerland. Put out a record called Die Berge. And he kept saying, check it out, check it out, check it out. It's going to be one of your favorite albums of the year. I wouldn't say I purposefully didn't listen, but I just had a bunch of other stuff going on. The album came out in November. That's my crazy time of year. It was not on my calibration list for 2024. I didn't listen to it, and I finally gave it a whirl last week and this week, and he was absolutely right. I was wrong. Marco was right. So, firstly, I have learnt my lesson, and I will never ignore a recommendation from him again. Secondly, it gave me a bit of an idea. I think maybe around the halfway mark of every year, we should do a special. We could maybe do it under the auspices of a 666 countdown. Maybe we get Nathan and the Reverend, the Sinister Minister Carl Hikara on here to do it with me. But maybe a countdown of what we missed. Great records that we just didn't pay enough attention to the year they came out, because there's so much stuff that gets released. It's inevitable that even though, I wait until the end of the year to do my best of list, and with the best of intentions, I try and make sure that the whole entire year is covered, you're still going to miss stuff. So that's something that I think I should salvage from this sad situation. But Marco, you were right and I was wrong. Okay, we head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. Deicide have pulled out of their spring 2025 US tour with Exodus due to scheduling conflicts. Interesting one, this, because it was announced only 2 weeks ago, and they've already pulled out. I don't know what sort of scheduling conflicts there could be. I would suggest there's potentially conflicts between their wallet and the promoters' desire to pay them. So, which again is fair. I mean, Glenn is reasonably open about that, and he gets shit about it from some fans. Let's separate like he's, their use of AI with their, ability to be businessmen. I think especially when it comes to touring, going out on the road, being away from your family, being in a bus, giving up the comforts of home, particularly when you're a band at a certain level. I would do exactly the same. If I get fucked around by a promoter, if I get fucked around by a venue owner or anything like that, I would tell them to fucking hit the bricks. Sorry to the fans. I'll make it up to you at some point, but I'm not putting up with that dog shit. Which is why I applaud Jeremy Wagner from Broken Hope for what he has done, which is to basically say, we're not touring anymore. Kind of like many other people, including Glenn Danzig. We spoke about that last week as well. Not touring anymore. We'll do one-off shows, make sure we put on the best show we possibly can, but we're not going to go and play a fucking venue with picnic tables, standing in the way of the stage and stuff like that. Dave Lombardo on filling in for Metallica's Lars Ulrich at 2004 Download Festival. It was a challenge. Tell you what, if you go back and you watch those videos, the one thing that you will take away from that experience is that the weak link in Metallica's name is Lars Ulrich. Dave Lombardo, when he played those old songs, sounded fantastic. I can't remember which ones he did. I think it might have been Creeping Death and a couple of others. But there's video of it around if you want to go check it out. He sounded magnificent, and Metallica sounded magnificent at that show. Exodus is Gary Holt. More Exodus news. We're recording 2 albums right now. Ben Weinman on the Dillinger Escape Plans, Future Plans. We're playing it by ear. I'm not interested in. I know he's not the original vocalist, but I'm not interested in Dillinger Escape Plan without Greg. What they were doing with Greg Puciato as the frontman was tremendously interesting to me, and it was just something that like every single album was filled with surprises. It was there was no band that sounded like them, and I know there's no band that sounds like them without Greg, but I don't give a fuck. Greg, I'm Team Greg all the way. Let's see if there's anything else. Doesn't look to be that way, so I think I'm gonna. Oh, actually, I wanted to talk about this. Philip Anselmo's Scour bandmate Derek Engerman defends singer over 2016 Dime Bash incident. I know he feels terrible about it. Why in the fuck are people still asking about this bullshit? I didn't really ask very many questions related to Phil to John, because I'm interviewing John. If I have Phil on the podcast, if I ever get that opportunity, I will ask Phil type questions. I will direct questions about Phil to Phil. But I can only imagine, and this is why, you know, I have some degree of empathy with John, you know, being a little tired. He certainly seemed a little wary to me when he came onto the show, when we started the conversation. You know, he's probably being asked the same old bullshit, and I can fucking guarantee you, knowing the metal press as I do, 9 out of 10 interviews that they did had a question about this. So, what do you feel about the Dime Bash incident? Has Phil suitably apologized now for what he did? It's going to be something fucking idiotic like that. And as I said, I don't understand why people haven't moved on from it. It is 9 years ago. He apologized. He's not done anything since. And yet, if you go into the comments section on any social media profile posting about this, whether it's Metal Sucks, Metal Injection, or any other of that fucking bozer dog shit, you get a laundry list of the wrong, you know, one guy posted the wrong Pantera member got killed, you know, Phil hasn't done the work, and this, that, and the other. I mean, what the fuck do you even mean by that? And it comes back to a point that I made a couple of months ago. I said this Phil business, for some people, it'll never be enough. They literally expect this man to put a gun in his mouth and kill himself as a way to placate them for the terrible quote-unquote harm that he's done. I mean, there's still people that go out protesting Pantera shows and try and get Pantera shows cancelled. They had those shows cancelled in Germany. I think that there were like 2 festival shows that they had cancelled like 2-3 years ago. It's fucking pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. If your mindset is like this, then this scene, this music, definitely this podcast is not for you. On that note, my friends, I'm going to wrap up. We listened to a new track by this band on a news rant not too long ago. I wasn't overly impressed by it, but I tell you what, when Sacrifice were at their peak, and this being Sacrifice out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, they made some fucking fine music, and a few more fine than their second album, Forward to Termination. That came out on Diabolic Force, and I'm going to play you a track by way of closing out the show called Terror Strikes. Absolutely ripping, manly thrash metal. I am, of course, back next week with Chris McEwen of Destructor, and I want to say in the lead up to that episode, which is glorious, by the way, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.